There are four muscles in your body right now, and whether you protect them or ignore them over the next 10 to 20 years will literally decide whether you are completely independent at 80 or needing someone to help you get out of a chair at 65. Most people have never heard this, and by the end of this video, you will not be one of those people. I'm Dr. Josh William. I'm an emergency medicine doctor, and I want to be straight with you. I've spent the last 10 years treating the consequences of what I'm about to talk about. Patients in their 60s and 70s, arriving on 8, 10, sometimes 12 different medications. Bodies that have lost all their reserves, unable to bounce back from even a minor health event. And when I trace back the pattern in so many of those cases, it always leads to the same quiet, invisible process that started years earlier. Usually in their 40s or 50s, nobody told them. Their doctors didn't have time to explain it. So today I'm going to... Before we dive in, if you've ever walked out of a doctor's appointment wishing someone had just taken the time to actually explain what's happening in your body and what you can do about it, that's exactly what this channel is for. Go ahead and subscribe right now so you don't miss the next one. I release videos like this every week, breaking down the medical information that can genuinely change the trajectory of your health, but only if you actually see it. I'm going to show you the 4 specific things you need to protect, in order, the most important first. And at the end, I'm going to give you a dead simple framework for what to actually do about it. Because that's the part most people never get to. Here's what I want you to understand first. From around the age of 30, you are losing muscle. About 1 to 2% every single year, if you're not actively challenging it. Now, 1 or 2% sounds like nothing, right? But run those numbers forward 20 years. And you've lost almost a third of your muscle mass. Run them forward 30 years? You're in serious, dangerous territory. The medical term for this is sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. And a landmark paper in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle found it affects around 30% of older adults living in the community. The real-world consequences of that aren't abstract. They are falls, fractures, hospitalizations, loss of independence, and premature death. Here's a number I want you to actually sit with for a second. A fractured hip after the age of 70 carries a 1-year mortality rate of 30%. 30%. That means roughly 1 in 3 people who break a hip after 70 are dead within 12 months. Most people making decisions about whether or not to exercise in their 40s have never been told that number. And I think that is a serious, serious problem. And in a study that followed over 5,000 adults aged 65 and over for nearly a decade, those with the weakest muscle strength had more than double the risk of dying compared to the strongest group. Double. And another major analysis found that higher muscle mass in midlife was strongly linked to lower risk of early death, heart disease, and disability later in life. So this is not inevitable. This is not just getting old. This is a process that can be interrupted, and the time to start is well before you see the consequences. Now, I want to show you the 4 specific muscles, or muscle groups, that matter most here, because not all muscle is equal. Some of it is far more critical to your independence and your survival than other parts. Starting with the one that, in my opinion, matters most of all. Here's number 1, your quadriceps, the big muscle at the front of your thigh. This is the muscle that decides whether you can get out of a chair on your own. It is your stair muscle. It is your step off the curb without hesitating muscle. And when it fades, stairs that used to feel effortless start to feel like an event. Here's a quick test I want you to try right now. Sit down in a normal chair. Cross your arms over your chest. Don't use them. And try to stand up 5 times. If that's hard, if your hands instinctively reach for the armrest without you even thinking about it, this muscle needs your attention. Now here's the good news. The test is the exercise. It's called a sit to stand. And it's just a squat with a chair behind you. Stand in front of the chair, feet shoulder width apart, toes slightly out. Lower yourself back toward the seat, slow and controlled, and then come back up. If you need to actually sit down first and then stand, that is a perfectly legitimate starting point. That is not cheating. That is exactly where to begin. From there, you naturally progress to hovering just above the seat and eventually a full squat without the chair entirely. What's brilliant about this movement is what it recruits all at once: quads, glutes, hamstrings, calves, core. All of it, no equipment at all. 10 reps, 2 or 3 times throughout the day. Now, I want to be honest with you about the timeline because I think unrealistic expectations are what kill people's consistency. The first 1 to 2 weeks, the changes are almost entirely in your nervous system. Your brain getting better at coordinating the muscles you already have. Better timing. Smoother movements. The actual physical muscle growth starts around weeks 3 to 6, and then it compounds significantly after that. If you're older, it's a bit slower, but the direction is always positive if you keep doing it. Always. Let me tell you something important about how muscle actually responds to training, especially if you're over 40. There's a phenomenon in exercise science called muscle memory, and it's not what most people think it is. If you were active when you were younger and then stopped for years, your muscle cells actually retain a kind of cellular blueprint of that previous training. Research published in Frontiers in Physiology showed that nuclei added to muscle fibers during previous training periods can persist for years, even decades, making it significantly easier to regain lost muscle compared to someone who was never trained at all. What that means in plain language: if you used to be strong, getting strong again is easier than you think. Your body remembers. And if you've never been particularly active, the gains you'll see in the first 8 to 12 weeks can be genuinely life-changing. Because you're tapping into a reserve your body has been waiting to use. Now, the second muscle group. This one catches almost everyone off guard, because most people don't think about training this part of the body at all. And yet it may be the single biggest anti-fall asset you have. So browser number 2, your calves. Your calves stabilize you when you're slightly off balance. They control your forward movement when you walk. They give you the confident stride that keeps your walking speed up. And here's something most people don't realize. Walking speed is one of the strongest independent predictors of health and survival in older people. That cautious, hesitant shuffle you see in some older adults? That's not just age. A significant part of that is muscle loss in the lower leg. Quick test. Stand near a counter or wall for balance. Try 10 slow, controlled single-leg calf raises, lifting one heel off the ground, rising onto your toes, and lowering slowly. If that feels shaky or barely possible, this muscle needs work. Start with both legs, holding the counter. Rise slowly, lower slowly, 10 to 15 reps, once or twice a day. And here's something worth knowing. Your calf muscle is also directly responsible for pumping blood back up from your legs to your heart. So there is a cardiovascular case for training this, not just a balance case. This is one of the most underrated exercises in existence for older adults. And it takes about 4 minutes and zero equipment. Let me explain why this matters more than you might think. There's a condition called venous insufficiency, where blood pools in the lower legs because the veins aren't getting enough muscular support to push it back up toward the heart. It causes swelling, discomfort, varicose veins, and in severe cases, ulcers on the lower legs that are incredibly difficult to heal. I see this constantly in the emergency department. And one of the major contributing factors? Weak, underused calf muscles. Your calves are literally your second heart. They're called the peripheral heart in some medical literature. Training them isn't vanity, it's vascular health. A 2020 study in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that calf muscle pump function declines significantly with age and inactivity, but responds remarkably well to even modest resistance training. Meaning, this is fixable. And the exercise I just showed you is exactly how you fix it. Now we're getting to something that goes deeper than just muscles. Because what I'm about to explain is where the real danger lives. And almost nobody explains this connection clearly. Source number 3, your core and postural muscles. These are the deeper muscles running alongside your spine and wrapping around your torso. When these weaken, your posture rounds forward. You start looking down when you walk. Your center of gravity shifts. And this is where something critical happens that most people never understand. Your nervous system, specifically a structure in your brain called the cerebellum, right at the base of your skull. This is your coordination and balance headquarters. It's constantly receiving signals from your legs and feet, telling it exactly where you are in space. And crucially, whether you're about to fall. But when your postural muscles weaken and you stop moving regularly, those signals degrade. The neural pathways get pruned back, because the brain operates on one brutally simple principle: use it or lose it. And what that means in practice is that the system designed to catch you when you stumble, the one that's supposed to generate a fast correction before you hit the ground, becomes too slow to do its job. This is why falls in older adults aren't random bad luck. They are the end result of years of accumulated muscle and neurological decline that was never addressed. Quick test, stand on one leg. See how long you can hold it without excessive wobbling. If 10 seconds is genuinely difficult, your balance system needs attention. The exercises that rebuild this are bird dogs, side planks, and glute bridges. I'll link videos in the description below showing exactly how to do each one. But briefly, a bird dog is on all fours, extending one arm and the opposite leg simultaneously. Hold. Come back. Switch. A side plank is lying on your side and lifting your hips off the floor. A glute bridge is lying on your back, knees bent, pushing your hips toward the ceiling. None of this requires equipment. All of it can be done on the living room floor. And even just standing on one leg while the kettle boils starts to rebuild exactly the neuromuscular calibration that is the difference between catching a stumble and ending up on the floor. Now let me tell you about something called proprioception. It's your body's ability to sense where it is in space without looking. Close your eyes right now and touch your nose with your finger. You can do that because of proprioception. It comes from tiny receptors in your muscles, tendons, and joints that are constantly sending signals to your brain. And here's what most people don't know. Proprioception degrades significantly with age and inactivity. A major review in Age and Aging found that impaired proprioception is one of the strongest risk factors for falls in older adults. But, and this is the critical part, it can be retrained. Balance exercises, single leg stands, even walking on uneven surfaces like grass or gravel, all of these actively rebuild proprioceptive awareness. Your nervous system is plastic. It adapts, it rewires, but only if you give it the input. And that input is movement, specifically movement that challenges your balance and coordination. This is why I'm so passionate about these exercises. They're not just strengthening muscle, they're literally rewiring your brain's ability to keep you upright. Stay with me for just another moment, because the fourth thing on this list is technically not a muscle, but it behaves exactly like one. And what I'm about to tell you is the part of this conversation that I think most people never hear. Number 4, your brain. Use it. It stays sharp. Neglect it. It quietly deteriorates. And here's the connection that most people don't know. Physical movement triggers the release of something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for your brain cells. It helps existing neurons survive. It helps new neurons grow. Higher BDNF is consistently linked to better memory, sharper thinking, and a significantly lower risk of dementia. The Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running health studies ever conducted, found that people who moved more had significantly lower rates of dementia over the long term. And a 2022 paper in the British Journal of Sports Medicine found that even modest increases in physical activity were associated with massive reductions in dementia risk across huge populations. Let me tell you something personal here. About a year ago, we got a golden lab named Mango. As he got bigger, we started walking him more, around 30 to 40 minutes, 3 times a day. My fitness improved. My legs got considerably stronger. But the thing I noticed most was my mood. It was significantly better in a way I genuinely couldn't explain away. The only thing that had changed was walking the dog. So when I tell you that movement protects your brain, I'm not just reading you research. I'm telling you what I experienced myself. Building these muscles isn't just about your legs. It is probably one of the single most powerful things you can do for your brain health. Let me go deeper on this brain connection, because I think this is where the science gets genuinely exciting. There's a protein called PGC1A that gets activated during exercise. It's sometimes called the master regulator of mitochondrial biogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying it tells your cells to make more energy-producing units. More mitochondria means more energy in your muscles and in your brain. A 2013 study published in Cell Metabolism found that exercise-induced PGC1A activation was directly responsible for increased BDNF production in the brain. Meaning, when you move your legs, you are literally sending chemical signals to your brain that tell it to grow, repair, and stay resilient. This isn't metaphorical. This is molecular biology, and it happens whether you're 35 or 75. Another study, this one from the University of British Columbia, used MRI scans to show that regular aerobic exercise actually increases the size of the hippocampus, the brain region involved in memory and learning. The control group, who did only stretching and toning, no change. The walking group, measurable growth in brain volume. This is one of the most compelling arguments I can give you for why movement isn't optional. It's not just about your joints or your heart or your weight. It's about whether your brain stays sharp enough to recognize your grandchildren's faces when you're 80. And if you're finding this valuable, if you're realizing there are things happening in your body right now that you didn't fully understand until this moment, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because next week I'm breaking down the 5 blood tests every person over 40 should be asking their doctor for, and why most doctors won't order them unless you specifically ask. You don't want to miss that. Now, let's make this actually usable, because information without a plan is just noise. First, if you are already genuinely active, gardening, shopping, carrying bags, climbing stairs regularly, out and about most days, you are probably already doing more for these 4 areas than you realize. Consistent, low-level daily movement compounds in a way that's more powerful than being sedentary all week and then doing one hard workout. Your body doesn't need a gym. It needs to be used every day. But if the last few years have been mostly sitting, and honestly, that describes a huge proportion of people right now, targeted exercises like the ones I've just shown you are enormously valuable. The gains from going sedentary to consistently doing these movements will compound in a way that is hard to overstate. In many cases, it is more powerful than medications we could prescribe. So here's the practical framework. Step 1. Start today with one movement. Sit to stand. 10 reps, no arms. If you need to use your arms, that's fine. That's your starting point. Do this in the morning, right after you wake up, before your coffee, before you check your phone. Make it the first physical thing you do. Why? Because willpower is highest in the morning. Decision fatigue hasn't set in yet, and if you do it first thing, nothing else in your day can derail it. Step 2. Once that feels manageable, add calf raises. Do them at the counter, while the kettle boils, while the microwave runs. Scatter them through your day. This is called exercise snacking, and research from McMaster University found that short, frequent bursts of activity throughout the day can be just as effective as a single, longer workout for building strength and improving metabolic health. You're not trying to become an athlete. You're trying to stay functional. And functional doesn't require a gym membership. Step 3. Add balance work. Stand on one leg whenever you can. It takes no time and does more than most people understand. Here's a progression that works for almost everyone. Week 1, stand on one leg while holding a counter. 10 seconds per side. 3 times a day. Week 2, same, but lighten your grip. Use just your fingertips for balance. Week 3, let go entirely, even if it's just for a few seconds. Week 4, try it with your eyes closed. This is advanced, but it's where the real proprioceptive magic happens. Step 4, add walking. Regular walking does something the targeted exercises don't quite manage alone. It trains all of these systems together, functionally, the way your body was designed to move. And the research on walking is remarkable. A huge meta-analysis in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology, pulling data from over 400,000 people, found that walking was associated with a significant reduction in cardiovascular death. The Nurses' Health study found that brisk walking for just 3 hours a week was associated with a 35% lower risk of heart attack. You do not need 20,000 steps. Around 7,500 steps a day is the sweet spot. Consistent, every day. And if you can do at least some of that walking after meals, science tells us that 3 short post-meal walks reduce your 24-hour blood glucose levels more effectively than one longer walk at another time of day. A 2022 study in sports medicine analyzed 7 different trials and found that even a 2-minute walk after eating significantly lowered blood sugar spikes compared to sitting. 2 minutes. That's to the end of your driveway and back. If you're someone managing prediabetes, insulin resistance, or type 2 diabetes, this is one of the simplest, most effective interventions you can do. And it costs nothing. Now, let's talk about something nobody mentions. What happens if you miss a day? Because you will. Life happens. You get sick. You travel. You have a terrible night's sleep and just can't. Here's what you need to know. 1 missed day does nothing. 1 missed week? Still almost nothing. Your body doesn't forget how to build muscle that quickly. What destroys progress is the story you tell yourself after you miss. I missed 3 days, so I've already failed. Might as well quit. That story, not the missed days, is what kills your results. So here's the reframe. Every single session is independent. You're not on a streak. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to do it more often than you don't. If you hit 4 out of 7 days this week, that's a win. That's progress. That's enough. And finally, feed your muscles. Older adults need more protein than most people assume. around 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. For a 70-kilo person, about 154 pounds, that's roughly 85 to 110 grams of protein daily. Because exercise without adequate protein is like building a house with no materials. And here's something critical that most people get wrong. You can't save up your protein and have it all at dinner. Your muscles can only process about 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal for muscle synthesis. Anything beyond that gets used for energy or other processes, but not muscle building. So the strategy is distribute it. Aim for 25-30 grams at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Here's what that actually looks like. Breakfast: 3-egg omelet with cheese or Greek yogurt with nuts. Nyunchimni is chicken breast the size of your palm or a can of tuna. Or dinner: piece of salmon or beef, roughly the size of a deck of cards. You don't need protein powder. You don't need shakes. You just need to be intentional. A major study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults who consumed adequate protein in combination with resistance exercise had significantly better muscle mass, strength, and physical function compared to those who exercised but didn't eat enough protein. The exercise matters, but the nutrition is the other half of the equation. And if you're vegetarian or plant-based, totally doable. Lentils, chickpeas, tofu, tempeh, edamame, quinoa. Just be more deliberate about combining sources to get complete amino acid profiles. Let me also say this. If you're on a tight budget, eggs are your best friend. They're one of the cheapest, most complete protein sources on the planet. A dozen eggs is often less than the cost of a single coffee. And each egg gives you about 6 grams of high-quality protein. Now, here's something I see all the time in the ER that I want to warn you about. Older adults come in after a fall. They fractured something. We admit them. They're in the hospital for a few days, maybe a week. And during that time, they're barely moving, lying in bed most of the day, eating hospital food that's often low in protein. And in just 1 week of bed rest, an older adult can lose up to 5% of their muscle mass. 5% in 1 week. That's catastrophic when you're already operating on a thin margin. And then they go home weaker than they arrived. More unsteady, at even higher risk of another fall. This is called hospital-acquired deconditioning, and it's a massive, under-recognized problem. The point I'm making is this: your muscle is your metabolic currency, your reserve tank. When something goes wrong, an illness, an injury, a surgery, your body draws on that reserve to heal. If the tank is full, you bounce back. If it's already empty, you don't. This isn't about aesthetics. This is about survival. I started this video by saying these 4 things decide whether you're independent at 80 or dependent at 65. And I meant that. Not because I want to scare you, but because every day at work, I see both versions of this future. I see people in their late 60s who arrive by ambulance, fragile, on 12 medications, unable to do the most basic things for themselves. And I see people in their 80s who walk so quickly through the hospital corridors that I can barely keep up. The difference between those two people did not happen suddenly. It happened over decades, in the small, quiet choices they made, or didn't make, in their 40s and 50s. The research is crystal clear about what happens to people who keep their bodies active versus those who let it quietly decline. One of the longest-running studies on aging, the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, followed thousands of people for over 60 years. And the single strongest predictor of healthy aging wasn't genetics, wasn't income, wasn't education. It was consistent physical activity. The people who kept moving, even modestly, had better cognition, better mobility, less chronic disease, and significantly more years of independent living. Let me share one more story with you because I think it captures everything I'm trying to say. A few months ago, an 82-year-old woman came into the ER after tripping on a curb. She didn't break anything. Didn't hit her head, just some bruising. But while she was there, I asked her, "Do you exercise?" And she looked at me and said, "Every morning. I do my squats, my balance work, and I walk my neighborhood." Have done for 15 years? She was sharp, strong, steady on her feet. I asked her what made her start. She said, "My mother spent the last 10 years of her life in a wheelchair, and I decided I would do everything I could to make sure that didn't happen to me." That woman is going to outlive half the people 30 years younger than her. Not because of luck, because of choice. You now have the information. You now have the framework. The next step is yours. Here's what I want you to do right now. Not later, right now. Subscribe to this channel. Because if you found this valuable, you need to see what's coming next. Next week, I'm releasing a video on the #1 vitamin deficiency I see in the ER that almost nobody knows they have, and it's quietly destroying your energy, your bones, and your immune system. Then the week after, I'm covering the 3 early warning signs of heart disease that have nothing to do with chest pain. This is the kind of information that doesn't go viral. It doesn't get millions of views, but it changes lives. And the only way you'll see it is if you subscribe. So do that now. Click that button. Join the community of people who are done waiting for their doctor to have time to explain this stuff. If you want me to keep breaking down the things your doctor might not have time to explain in a 10-minute appointment, follow along. I post this so you don't have to spend hours piecing it together on your own. And the people who tend to watch this channel are usually the ones in their family who everyone calls when something goes wrong. The ones who end up in the hospital room asking the questions. The ones researching at 2 a.m., trying to understand what's actually happening. If that sounds like you belong here. You're the person who's going to take this information and actually use it. Not just for yourself, but for your parents, your spouse, your siblings. You're going to be the one who notices when someone's balance is off. Who suggests they start doing sit-to-stands? Who walks with them after dinner? And years from now, that might be the difference between them living independently and them needing full-time care. I know that sounds dramatic, but I've seen it happen too many times to sugarcoat it. The time to act is now, not when something goes wrong. Not after the fall, not after the diagnosis. Now, while you still have time to build the resilience you're going to need. So start today. Pick one exercise, do it, and do it again tomorrow. That's it. That's the whole plan. Small, repeated actions compounded over time. That's how you protect your future. And make sure you're subscribed, because I'm going to keep giving you the tools to do exactly that. Click subscribe. Turn on notifications. Let's do this together. I'll see you in the next one.